just a great grand mess, really.
It is, isn't it?
I mean,
Yeah. The latest is 70 million upfront plus £8 million in add-ons.
An interesting one, really. No one really knows if he's good enough. The talks will probably be quite short, won't they? I'm still going.
I
don't want to be here.
Yeah,
right,
I don't want to earn the right to train with you. Yeah,
it might be boosted by the fact that United just seem to be signing average players this summer. That's there, spending a lot of money on average players. Well, they're just, if they want to be a mid-table club, they're going the right way about it, aren't they?
Hello and welcome to Transfers Exposed. I'm Will Pugh, and that right next to me here for the pinnacle of his journalism career is football reporter Jack Russell. Jack, wonderful to have you with us on Transfers Exposed.
Happy to be here, mate. This is your exclusive press pass to the hottest transfer stories straight from the Sunsport newsroom.
Exactly, said with excitement and vigour from my mate Jack there. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday, of course, throughout the transfer window until it slams shut on September the 1st. Jack, brilliant to have you here, mate. There's only one place to start. In this video, we're going to break down the latest at Newcastle, of course. Isak, Sesko, what have you made of it all before we get into the facts and figures?
Just a great grand mess, really.
Isn't it? Yeah.
For years, they've been, a few years now, they've been the richest club in the world, hugely backed and not really able to spend. And then you think, right, the PSR problems are fading away a bit. They're back in the Champions League. Yeah. They've won a cup. Yeah. They're ready to go. All that excitement. And then just a bit of a tragedy or something, really,
exactly,
isn't it?
I
mean, you feel a bit sorry for Eddie Howe in that he's just not been able to move. They've been going for target after target and being picked off by rival clubs, maybe bigger clubs in the Premier League and elsewhere that are just getting in there and getting the players they want. And then after all that, not getting everyone, their best player goes, right, I'm off.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Alan Shearer called it a mess this week, I think, the situation at Newcastle. Look, we'll get into all of that in a minute, do a bit more deep dive and analysis, as we always do, Jack. But the back page this morning, Jake Sanders writing this one, Sesk talk. Newcastle Toon up Ben bid to £78 million with hope of edging out Manchester United. Newcastle have launched a £78 million bid to sign RB Leipzig striker Benjamin Sesko. There he is, looking absolutely delighted at the prospect of moving.
To get to inside.
Exactly that. Goodness me. But yeah, so the initial bid from Newcastle come in, which was 65.5 plus 4.3 million in add-ons. As is the case these days, you'll know this better than most, in touch with an awful lot of agents and clubs up and down the country. These days, tapping up just doesn't exist anymore. No. All these deals are done between camps and clubs first, and then they do the sort of the admin bit at the end of making...
We'll talk to them now, shall we? Yeah.
Exactly that. But so 65.5 plus 4.3 million in add-ons was the first bid. RB Leipzig knocked that one back. Now, the latest is 70 million upfront plus £8 million in add-ons. Now, there's reports elsewhere that Newcastle have told Sesko that he has to make his mind up within 48 hours. Worth noting, we haven't written that this morning, just other suggestions elsewhere. A day of positive talks said to have taken place on Monday between club and Sesko's camp. Obviously, this affects Isak and his situation, which we'll come on to in a minute. But Sesko first, your summary?
An interesting one, really. No one really knows if he's good enough. That's the main problem, isn't it? Yeah. Arsenal were there for so long and sort of decided, no, really, we don't want to get involved in this for someone we're not completely convinced by. It's an awful lot of money for players.
Transfer fee and wages, by the way.
The wages will be... I mean, Newcastle aren't the biggest payers in the Premier League. That's where they've encountered a few problems, so they might save a bit there. But, I mean, they're trying to go all out wages-wise to keep Isak, aren't they? But that's probably not going to happen. I think the only winners from this really are Leipzig, aren't they? They're sat there watching Newcastle and Man United. Jurgen Klopp now part of it all as well.
Yeah, cool.
Feet up, watching the bids roll in.
Trotters up, cigars out.
For Sesko, just counting his money basically coming in. I think, we're expecting United will come in at some point. That will either to come in and get him, and it sounds like his preference would probably be to go to United.
Yeah, I think so. Open to both projects is the wording. I mean, that sounds like agent.
Who doesn't love a project?
Exactly. I remember the Gyökeres earlier in the window. The intro on the back of our paper was gone on strike in order to force through his dream move to Manchester United or Arsenal.
Yeah.
Equal.
Just get me out of
exactly.
here.
I've had equal amounts of childhood dreams about Old Trafford and the Emirates. But on Sesko then, what I find it really interesting is that exactly what you touched on early doors. And I think lots of people in football circles are asking these same questions and having these same doubts. Arsenal is kind of generally accepted that he was their number one target earlier in the window. They've done an awful lot of like background research, as they do on more than one player, of course. An awful lot of background data research and analysis on his performances last season, Sesko. Generally felt from a football perspective, he was the best fit. However, when it came to it, as you mentioned, he's got an £86 million release clause. Leipzig have always said, all right, we're not going to hold clubs to that. However, we're not accepting a penny less than 70 million quid, so don't bother wasting our time. So there's a fair old lump there. I know they ended up paying around that for Gyökeres anyway, Arsenal, or not far off it. But also huge wages. And then it seems to be the generally accepted knowledge now is that there were doubts about his mentality and whether he could shoulder the burden of going into a massive Premier League club. And like Arsenal, everyone knows they need a striker. Yeah. All eyes are going to be on the person in that number 9 position this season.
Well, there's no burden following Isak, is there, at Newcastle? Well, he'll be absolutely fine.
Well, yeah, quite. Exactly that. But to be fair, though, if Arsenal had those doubts about Sesko,
everyone else will.
Especially at that money.
Yeah.
What do you make
definitely.
of that?
I mean...
Because Gyökeres doesn't look like he has a single shred of doubt about his ability in his mind at all, does he?
No, definitely not. Newcastle will always be a high-pressure place to go into just because the fans are behind you and on you, but it's probably an easier task to go in there because if you start well, the fans will really swell behind you and give you a platform like not many other clubs can. I know it gets worn down a bit, the best fans in the world. Everywhere's got the best fans in the world, but
don't let Sean Cusses hear you saying that. Yeah.
I've told him many a time.
It means more to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
At home at St James's Park, if you've got a fan base behind you, like they have been with Isak until the last couple of weeks, the huge tifos, the Gallagate behind him, then that will really help.
The modern day sign of fan support, the tifo.
The tifo. United is a completely different kettle of fish. You're almost against it from day one, aren't you? You've got to prove yourself right away. We've seen it with Xerxes, Højlund, just look shadows of the players that maybe you saw playing in Italy or that maybe hoped to see at Old Trafford and have just never got through because there just seems to be this devastating pressure on them from day one, from the second they walk in the building. It might be boosted by the fact that United just seem to be signing average players this summer. That's there. Spending a lot of money on average players.
And Bumo?
Well, they're just, if they want to be a mid-table club, they're going the right way about it, aren't they? For an awful lot of money. I just don't think they're quite...
Right, Manchester United fans, Jack's views do not represent those of Transfers Exposed. Get after him in the comments by all means. But if I was a Manchester United fan or a Newcastle fan, I would be worried, and I think fans are starting to cotton on now.
I'd still be excited about what could happen. He's clearly a good player.
But are United in a position, Jack, to buy potential at the moment?
No.
Because I think in Burma and Cunha are tongue in cheek.
Well, maybe they should be buying potential. I think maybe that is...
But that's what they tried with Højlund, isn't it?
It is. They spent far too much on potential there. Trying to buy the ready-made thing, go now.
Yeah.
They're not looking for the next best thing. They've tried to do that with Amorim. They've tried to find a coach on their way up. It's been a long time since they've hired a coach on his way up. And they need to be doing that with players as well. So this deal makes more sense than others in that sense.
Fine. Okay, so we'll stick with Newcastle because that's what this video is about, of course. Alexander Isak. Now, the sense seems to be that there's this standoff. He flew back to England on Saturday. He was training on his own at his old club, Real Sociedad. He missed the pre-season tour to the Far East with this thigh injury that he's rumoured to have picked up, or we're led to believe, or told at least, that he picked up. Then was suddenly able to train in Spain alone at his old club. Flew back to England on Saturday. He was at Newcastle's training ground on Monday, receiving treatment. Is the line again? Newcastle's players weren't there. Exactly that. Yeah. Newcastle's players weren't there because they'd landed from Korea at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. So no other staff were there. Set for showdown talks with Eddie Howe this week. That will be in the next sort of 24, 48 hours. Those talks will take place. Eddie Howe said on Sunday that Isak has to earn the right to train with us now. £110 million Liverpool bid rejected initially, which confused the Newcastle hierarchy because they'd rang him up, given him an informal approach, said, look, we could give you 120 million here. What do you think? They'd said no at the time, and then their actual bid was less than their informal one earlier in the window. Isak, what do you think?
The talks will probably be quite short, won't they? I'm still going.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here.
Yeah,
right,
I don't want to earn the right to train with you. Yeah,
I don't want to be training with you. I want to earn the right to train over there. On the other coast.
I want to train with Liverpool. Yeah.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I think there's been a lot of talk about, why are we all hearing this now? Why, he's let player Ekitike come here and go there. They've let Lot move around. But a lot of people have known since the end of last season, the start of the summer, that he'd be up for moving. And a lot of work will have been done by Liverpool. You mentioned that they've had those informal talks with Newcastle and been told, go away. But I think there's been a worry inside Newcastle, maybe not within the ownership, maybe they're, ironclad where he is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Their resolve will not be broken on it. But there has been a worry lower down at Newcastle all summer that something is going to happen. As we mentioned earlier, they're not the best payers in the league. Yeah. They've got a set wage structure. Gary Stonehouse has written about this a lot with various different players. Isak's been unhappy for a while. You go back to last summer, the contract
bit
offer.
Of a U-turn on the contract deal,
that was sort of happening and then pulled away because Paul Mitchell sort of looked at his situation and went, well, why does he need a new one?
Exactly that.
He's now gone.
Yep.
The leadership is, absent in terms of a sporting structure at Newcastle at the moment, which puts a lot on Eddie Howe and Andy Howe.
Yeah.
Especially while they're going through a pre-season tour. They're trying to land other targets that they've missed out on. That becomes frustrating. It also sends a message out, really, to other players that are looking at it to think, well, if they're one option on the table and I've got, Sesko, I've got Man United there as well, and Newcastle have constantly missed out on João Pedro, Dean Huijsen, Liam Delap, a long list of players. Why is that happening? Maybe I should not go there as well. That's the thing that happens. So I think this sense of nerves, worry that things aren't going to go right, obviously impacts the fans, impacts some of the players in terms of starting the season. And with Isak now, it just feels there's one way it's going to go.
I feel like the biggest faux pas for them of this whole window, Jack, is the Ekitike deal. Now, it seemed when the story first came out, Newcastle fans were a little bit worried that they were, publicly linked with Ekitike. Talks underway, all the usual sort of wording around the early stage of a transfer deal. And it's the Newcastle fans were just panicking, going, oh no, if we get him, that probably means Isak's going. All of a sudden, then you go sort of lurch from that to, yes, Liverpool have got him, that means Isak's staying.
Well, that's the thing, and the word from the moment that they got Ekitike was, we're not done in terms of strikers. I think that after the bid was knocked back last week, and again, I agree with you, a bit odd to Liverpool are going to try and get the best deal for themselves, aren't they? Isak's clearly not happy. Yeah. Maybe going a bit lower. Yeah. There was sort of a word coming out from a lot of reports that, oh, well, that's it, we're done now. They've rejected it, so we won't try again. But you don't spend a summer doing that, do all that work to put one offer in and go, oh, no, all right, then we'll leave you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
you don't want to sell him, that's fine.
Yeah.
They will come back, I think. And
of course.
Come the start of the season, whether it's right at the start of the season or it's, the start of September, I think Isak will be playing for Liverpool.
I quite agree, yeah. And I mean, Newcastle's position from the off was 150 million, not a penny less, which is a perfectly reasonable stance to take, given how valuable he has been and given the quality of elite level strikers available out there in the world and in Europe these days. That negotiating position, is a lot more difficult to maintain when the player's training on his own at his old club in Spain and having stories like showdown talks, stuff like that. All of a sudden, it becomes much more difficult.
Maybe it's for the best that we cut this out, and because there will be a lot of players at Newcastle that also maybe considered their futures this summer, maybe weren't too sure whether they wanted to stay, had interest from elsewhere. Yep. Still went on the tour, still playing. Yep. Didn't have a knock that kept them from doing absolutely everything all summer. And then everyone talks about togetherness and everything, and Newcastle have had a great spirit and togetherness. Yeah. All the way through, all the pictures after big victories, pictures with the cup and everything like that. It doesn't take a lot to undo that within football. No. So there'll be a few players within the squad that won't be very impressed. I'm sure Eddie Howe's not very impressed with how it's all playing out. It's a lot to come back from.
Do you think, Jack, that you're so close to players, agents, managers, hierarchies at clubs? Do you honestly think that is there that sentiment anymore? Is there that disappointment? Is there that I'm gutted that this player is not perceived as loyal?
Not around that, I don't think. I think around because any player in that position who's on a certain amount at one
130
club
grand a week
and
at the
offered
moment. Yeah.
200 plus elsewhere, they're all going to want to go for it. There's no sort of can't believe he's leaving us for a bigger club. How disloyal.
Yeah.
But I think the way some players carry themselves still rubs off on certain people.
Is it not that? And I often fall on the player's side of these things. I think just as far as my sympathies go, and I mean he has knocked back Isak a £300,000 a week Newcastle contract, so they were willing to break that wage structure in order to keep him. He's turned around and said no to that. So the desire is clearly to move on, as we already know. But with things like that, and I don't want to, go on the tour and stuff like that. I appreciate there's always a desire, particularly among fans, and an expectation almost, you've got to be professional, etc., etc. Is the risk is it rather than sort of petulance and bad attitude, is it just a kind of legitimate fear that an injury in a meaningless pre-season game might scupper the biggest move of that player's career? Is it a reasonable fear?
There will be some of that, but that's a conversation you can have with the manager when you're out there, I think. That's a balance where you can say, look, I mean, we've seen it happen with players after a move. Christopher Nkunku at Chelsea, awful injury out on a pre-season tour in Chicago.
Yeah.
Meant he never really got his career going. I mean, some things do just happen.
Yeah.
If you're constantly, working and playing like that, then you're not going to do anything really. You're not going to make any progress.
We'll see, won't we? But, I saw someone go through Eberiche Eze the other day in a pre-season game, go right through the back of him, and Eze got up and was like, will you be careful, please? Yeah. I'm trying to go to Arsenal.
Really not the time for this.
Exactly. Just last one then, Jack. Jan Wissa, 28 years of age, £25 million bid from Newcastle, rejected by Brentford. Brentford want 30 million quid. He's training alone now as Wissa. He left that pre-season tour of Portugal.
Very similar, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. It's the same sort of format, isn't it, for lots of these stories. 11 months left on his Brentford deal, which makes a £30 million demand seem a lot initially, but Brentford hold an option for an additional year. You're quite close to lots of stuff that goes down at Brentford and in London in general. What do you know about this? What do you feel about it?
I think it will happen. It sounds like it's going to pick up this week and tick along. I think it could be a really smart, sensible deal for Newcastle, so long as if Isak goes, they get Sesko, they get Wissa. They probably need to build in some depth and some quality and depth there. They've obviously still got Gordon, Barnes as part of that forward line as well. Alanga. No, definitely not. No. And you've also got the thing of you've broken up him and Mbeumo, and Mbeumo's obviously gone to Manchester United. They play off each other so well. Definitely that will be a question for everyone. The one thing to defend that is that both him and Mbeumo have moulded around so many different people at Brentford, so many different pairs and partnerships, and continued to kick on. So he will back himself to do that. Newcastle obviously think he can go and do that elsewhere. He's a very direct and dangerous player when he wants to be, which is what Newcastle under Eddie Howe have been best at, that direct, straight in, kick the door down, cause you loads of trouble, that sort of football. So he will be a good fit, but on his own, definitely not enough.
Absolutely. Newcastle not quite kicking the door down in the transfer market, though, and proof maybe that all of the money in the world can't necessarily buy you the necessary experience and nous needed in the transfer market.